Agency owners, welcome back. Have a really awesome conversation and success story today. We have Arik Ahluwalia, founder of Spring Media Inc., and he's got a story about how he was able to grow his business by adding 50K a month, going from 30K all the way up to the $1 million run rate. And a pretty short time. I think it was like Arik, you'll tell me. I think it was a 6 to 8 month time frame where you're able to kind of hit that below $500,000 run rate, hitting that $1 million run rate. And this is a story that's overdue. This is like an over a year old story now. So Arik, thanks for joining. For everyone that doesn't know you, what's Spring Media Inc. and who are you? The elevator introduction.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jordan. My name's Arik. I run Spring Media. So Spring Media is essentially a we focus on retention marketing for e-commerce brands. So that's everything from email marketing, SMS marketing, and basically just maximizing an existing brand's customer database to drive more revenue.
Unbelievable. And the story we're telling today is the story of our relationship, right? I met you. This is nuts. I met you 2 years ago, which is like, this really emphasizes how overdue this conversation is. This is almost a 2 year story. So we met 23 months ago. That's how old this story is. So when I met you, right, you're doing about 30K a month. Mm-hmm. You had wanted to scale to 100K a month. You wanted all the typical things. But at that point, right, you were struggling with operations. Emails aren't being done on time or correctly, or you don't have a great forecasting. So there's a lot of things operation that was actually preventing you from growing. So when you think back to that time of us meeting, where was your business at? What made you want to reach out, and what were the problems that you were facing, so we could just set a benchmark of where this story starts?
Yeah, it's a great topic. So essentially, when we had met, I was running a small team, like a pretty fairly small team. And we were doing good. Like margins, everything was great. It was a good business structure. It was a scalable model, I had thought at the time. And essentially, I came to you because we were running into like very, very annoying things like QA. We'd sign like amazing clients, and then like small things would go wrong. Workflow was a mess. I thought I was good at operations, right? And like at the time I was using like this Monday board, which it was just absolute chaos, man. Like you should have seen how this thing looked. Like looking back at it now, it's actually insane. And yeah, man, I mean, essentially it was primarily focused on like operations, right? Because we had a good model that was scalable, but I knew we couldn't scale with good operations or someone at least helping out on that end. So that's what led me to you. And, that's where we started talking.
Awesome. So we meet. It's one of those things. I know I need better ops. I know this is more scalable, but when you look, it's funny. Like I think about like artists, musicians, and like actors when they watch their earlier work, they're like, oh, that was shit. It sounds like a similar thing with you. When we started engaging with you, you were working with Joe. When we were working with you, what were some of the things that we started to implement with you that really start to make a difference that would eventually lead to growth in your company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at that time, just kind of brushing on this again or touching on this again, like I had thought I had good operations or decent operations in place. And when I spoke to Joe, to be honest, I was a little overwhelmed with like how much work needed to be put in on the operations standpoint. And without getting into like every single little detail, essentially what happened was Joe pointed us in the very right direction, right? So what that led to is at the time I had a team member who was crushing copy. Like he was doing really well on copy. And he was helping me out on some like just organizing my day-to-day workflow. So I had this idea. I was like, hey, like, why don't you just step on in and help us with our operations? So that's when we were working with Joe, and we were running a lot of things by him. And like just with some of the things I was able to collect with Joe, and from my guy who had grown into like a head of operations type role, we were able to translate everything into like what we were using was Notion. We still use Notion, and we optimized everything. So that's workflow, some task automations, really clear cut SOPs. Like SOPs is a big one because I feel like at every stage of business, it's not like you just set it up and you forget about it, right? It's like you set those up and then you continuously have to refine them, tweak them, right? Someone might not be following that to the T, and then you got to like come back and reset expectations or whatever that looks like. So the biggest takeaway like that we really had was what allowed us to start to scale was really just cleaning that up, and then also just understanding that people aren't robots, right? Like people can only handle so much workload, right? So really like dialing to the specific roles of, hey, how much can this person handle, right? If it's, let's just say it's a copywriter. Okay, how many brands can you realistically handle? How long does it take you to write one piece of email copy, right? And then understanding and getting a gauge that, okay, well, it takes X amount of time. They can realistically handle X amount of tasks per day. And then we started breaking things up like that with every single department. And that's how we refined our operations.
It's funny because like in a matter of like less than 2 minutes, I think you summarize like 6 months of work, right?
Literally,
So let's do a quick recap because I think for people that may not have gone through this experience, it sounds really simple, but to your point, looking into it is like, oh my goodness, this is a lot. So coming in, operations are disjointed. So we optimize workflow. We define when we sign a deal all the way to maintain that client for 1, 2, 3 years. What is everything we need to do? What's the SOP? What's the SOP? What's the standard way to go about this? Do we need to do training? Do we need to have task automations? Do we need to have integrations? Right? What software is this being done in? How do we communicate? Right? So you built all this in. And not only that, once the version 1 of that was built, you said something that's actually really important here. You built a process after this was built to sustain it. So in warehouse terminology, there's something called 5S: set, sort, shine. It's a tongue twister. Something, and then sustain. Sustain's the important one here. It basically means when you go into a disjointed place, the final thing of any process to organize things is sustain it. And actually what you guys did here was we built a process of iterating, improving SOPs, and really baking that into management. I want to go back to that. I'm going to finish my recap, then we're going to go back to that point. When all this foundation was built, we started to look at, and we built it primarily through this ops manager really extrapolating their copywriting skills and their knowledge set. Once this was built, we felt we had a good operation that was done through Notion and done through software. We now needed to look at each person and understand what I call the value stream equation, right? So per role, what are the expectations? What are the responsibilities? What's the capacity per role? What's throughput? How efficient can they be? So how many clients could they handle? How long do things take? When do things break? So we could start to forecast and know when we need help, when we need to hire, when we need to manage. I'm guessing, how long did all this take? Like you said a lot. I recapped that, but like, what was that? Is that like 5 months? I guess that's like a 4 or 5 month process.
This was a long process. Like now I look back at it, like I did make it sound very simple. It was not simple. Like when we were going through, it was a lot of I'm going to be honest, a lot of headaches, a lot of tweaking things, a lot of reviewing, a lot of expectations with teams. So to be honest, like this has been. I mean, we started this process back when when you mentioned, I think 2022, right, is when I reached out.
Yeah, we started in 2022.
And all of 2023 was literally like, the way I could sum it up was we'd roll out an operating procedure, like an SOP, and then it'd break because we were scaling so quickly. And then it would work, and then it'd break again, and then we revamped it, and then it'd break again. So it was like literally like a year-long process. I feel like there was like a 6-month period where we had a lot of our breakthroughs on the operation end. And then specifically when we changed our project management softwares from Monday to Notion, that's when things got a lot easier. But just diving into a little bit of the details, like I mentioned, for one role, right? So for example, we operate on pods, right? Like teams. And we were operating on like one team, then we scaled to 2 teams, then we tried scaling to 3 teams, right? The thing is, an SOP that might work for 1 team or maybe 2 teams, it might break when you start to scale that, right? And that's what was happening. It was like starting to break. So I tried rolling out a 3rd team multiple times in 2023, at least like 4 or 5 different times, and it would break every single time. I was like, why is this happening, right? Part of that has to do with when you scale too quickly and you don't have a foundation set, things are bound to break, right? And then also another part of that is I learned so much during that time period, right? That like you can have the best operations in the world, but like if you just keep adding more and more fire to it, meaning if you just keep adding a bunch of clients, right, without setting or knowing the expectation of like, okay, how many realistically can we handle per week, per month, things are going to break, right? So also part of that is like I had to cool down my ambition a little bit because I really wanted to scale. I really wanted to like gain more clients, help more people, etc. But then part of that was just me maturing as a business owner, understanding that, okay, realistically, maybe we can only onboard like 1 to 2 accounts per week max, right? And that's where the operations are clean. So now, like fast forward to now I have a really clear picture. Like, okay, we can only onboard like realistically 4 to 5 new brands per month without things breaking. And even that's a stretch. So, yeah.
I think that's a really critical point. I wrote a thorough newsletter, blog, thread, whatever platform you read on, like that. I read something this past week talking about one of the agencies we are now a partner in. We own a minority stake in the company. And in the first 6 months of the year, we added over $1 million in annual revenue. And in my conversation with the business owner and founder this past week, I said, we need to identify what we're capping at. And what I meant was he has more business than we can fulfill on. And a lot of founders like yourself, when you're young and ambitious, the thought process is, I want to go really fast. I'm just going to say yes to a lot of shit. We're going to figure it out operationally. What actually ends up happening, that actually stagnates, shrinks your business for a longer and prolonged period of time than saying yes to all the business. Because what happens is, to your point, there's wrinkles and nuances between account management, like customer success training and account managers, people training for operations managers and like managers of people. There's these things that you don't anticipate. So when you get to a certain leverage point, call it 30, 40, 50 clients or 3 pods, we had these processes that we didn't foresee, like what those even existed. We need to build through that. And now we're trying to build as things break. And you end up in just what I call the prisoner's flywheel. Shit's now breaking. You're trying to fix it. You're closing deals to capture that up because you added cost. So you're trying to keep up with like profitability. And for some people puts you on a 12, 24 month loop where it's like, you literally get stuck on that loop because you just try to grow so fast. And what I was telling this guy is, let's pick a number that's conservative. How many deals can we sign on? I think he said 10. I'm like, cool. We're going to sign 5 for the next 3 months. And we're going to reassess in 90 days how many deals we're going to bring on per month. Because if we do this the right way right now, we will never stagnate and we will grow from 2 million, because we're about to blow past 2 million. We're going to go from 2 million to 3 to 4, and we're not going to shrink. And that's kind of what you said. I did this too. This put me on an 18-month plateau because I got on my own prisoner's flywheel, and it's a maturity thing. I think a lot of founders, you can either hear it right now before you've done it, or you have to unfortunately grow through it, eat shit, and then realize, okay, it's time to build this correctly, the right way.
Correct.
Do you feel like that's exactly what happened with you as a summary?
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's a lot of other factors, right, that I feel like aren't talked about enough. Is like, when you're scaling, you have to hire more, right? Okay, well, people make it seem like, oh, it's so easy to just hire people. Okay, what about the training period? What about like assessing, like, are they a good hire? What about assessing like their workload? What about, you know what I'm saying? What about like, are they reliable?
There's so much that goes into it. And I talk about the variables of success. Every layer that you add to your company, every piece of talent, piece of software, piece of forecasting, a new client adds a new layer of complexity. And as you scale, you need more systems to accommodate for all those things. How do you make sure this person connects to you? How do you make sure we onboard? It takes years of building to actually get to a place where you can scale, like probably 2 to 3 years of nonstop building operations. So you touched on 2 points I want to go back to. I thought those were really relevant points. You had to build a process within those first 6 to 12 months of building a process to iterate and improve SOPs. When did you build that, and what was the impact of doing so on your company?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, like I said, it was like the biggest thing that I can really think of was project management softwares, right? Like I said it again, it's like shifting from what we were using was Monday to Notion. And I think it's very important. Like I hear this a lot, is like, oh, like ClickUp's the best, or Asana's the best, or Airtable's the best, or Notion's the best. Like at the
They
end
all
of the
do the
day,
same thing.
yeah, they're all the same thing. It really doesn't matter. It's just like, what is best for you in your specific use case. So I think what you guys really helped us with, man, is you gave us a lot of clarity, and Joe gave me a lot of clarity on like our business model, what we should be doing, and he just pointed me in the right direction and consulted on the right things, where I was able to take that information, go to my team, and build something very unique for us. I don't believe like there's a plug and play method for every business. It does not exist. Like, it's just not possible, because every single business has their own struggles, challenges, obstacles, how it works, the workflows, etc. So I would say that was the biggest change for us. And then the other biggest thing was just layers of communication, right? So when we scaled, I believed that hiring more people was going to fix it all. I was like, oh, if we have more hands on deck, we're going to be completely fine. Now sitting here realizing, like in this present time, I actually realized like the leaner you can keep a team and the more efficiently you can deliver a service, the better off things are going to be. More streamlined communications, more streamlined workflows. Are there tasks that are broken up for no reason? Can we put that as a collective? So just to boil it down, two main things. One was project management software. We got that solved. And number two was the actual team, right? Like actually figuring out, can we condense this, make this a leaner model, and deliver the same, if not better, quality of service with less people? Those two things like change the business completely.
Yeah. And I mean, all things in the operational game all lead to the same road. Like what you're talking about, you could take a template, but we need to take this concept and template and we need to make it specific to you. We call that the loop process at 8F, right? And we tell everyone, like, we have clients, we were talking about this in our 8F consulting meeting last Friday. We have clients that ask for template. And we were training our newer consultants, like, you need to push back. Hey, I'm going to give you this template, but the reason this will work is not because you're going to copy and paste this other, we'll just use this other email agency's template. If you do that, this will not work because you have specific nuances, specific genius, specific processes. This shows you what it looks like for them, and we need to, curtail it to your business. So I love how you mentioned that specificity. And then, lean operations. That in warehouse operations, this is called throughput, which is it is a business term. Not everyone knows that, but throughput, I mentioned already in the conversation, it's a measurement for your efficiency. How much output do you get per team member, right? In the SaaS world, it's SaaS world talks about revenue per employee, right? So I totally agree with you. You do want to make things lean because the more lean you are, I don't know if it's that as you scale things are better. I think what it requires you to do, it just requires you to have cleaner ops, right? So I really love how you point out those two things. I want to go quick high level on all this. You said, this changed the way you thought about the business and you operated. When we met, you're doing 30K. After building this in 2023, what was the peak that this got you to as a result of building these processes, enabling you to actually grow through it?
Yeah, I mean, we were averaging about like 70K a month after we started like peaking and growing. Like it was just like we went on a burner, just signing clients left and right. We got all the way up to like 95, I believe was our peak. And that's when things started to break a little bit, right? Because we scaled so quickly, and that was a big lesson for me as like a business owner. Was you could have all the right operations in place, you could have all the right team members in place, but if you scale too quickly, things will break, right? Things can break. I won't say will break, they definitely can break. So a lot of lessons came out of there. And now, like, in this present moment in time, like I've learned from all of those lessons, right? It started with me coming to you for operations help, right? And then we got that sorted. All right, perfect. Like now I feel like we're pretty good on the operations time. Like I actually think that's one of our strongest things is ops. Now it's like, okay, from a hiring perspective, how can we lean that out? And now like, it's just back to like, all right, now how can we add more fire to the existing operation that we have going on here? So, yeah.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, I define ops as an operator, because I know your skill set, you're a marketer who learned ops through entrepreneurship, right? I'm an operator who learned on like marketing. Like we're opposite sides of the spectrums. Mm-hmm. My view on operations, everything is operations. Like your core project management, there's a process under the umbrella of operations. Your function for customer success, your function for management, your function for sourcing, hiring, onboarding, training, retaining, developing, firing, HR, everything is under the umbrella of operations. And I think that's actually a great highlight. I think a lot of founders, especially when you're first ascending, I just need to operationalize my operations. And my insight to, if you're listening and you're a marketing founder who views it in that narrow form, everything is a process, and everything end to end of your business needs to get documented, from how you do business development, how you do marketing, how you do branding, your brand book, how you do sales calls, sales training, sales management. Like everything has a rubric and a template and a process that needs to be updated, improved, and managed and audited and coached and developed, then massaged and iterated on. And it's extensive. It's literally takes years. We've been doing this for 5 years now, and it's like we still have so far to go. Like we probably have another 5 years to go until I could confidently say like we're the best in the world just for operations, period, for all companies, not just in the marketing space. So, Arik, I really appreciate you coming on. I think this is a great overview, and I appreciate the candor of like, yeah, we scaled too fast, and scaling too fast is actually the thing that hurt us the most. I think that's a really important insight for a lot of people, because you could build a lot of processes. There's always the unknown, like you don't know what you don't know. And there are companies that can onboard 20, 30, 40 clients a month in agencies. It's just they built the operations and all operations to be able to sustain that. Like Hawk Media is a good example of that, because I've seen that. I've seen them onboarding 30, 40, 50, 100 clients a month, but it took them a significant amount of time to be able to do that. So, Arik, for anyone that wants to connect with you, learn more about you, learn about your agency, where can they find you and learn more?
Yeah, great question. So it's just chief_Arik. Eric's with an A, Arik, on Twitter, on Instagram, and then just Arik Ahluwalia on LinkedIn. So that's about it.
Cool. Thank you, bro. Thank you for coming on. And if
Thanks
you
for
guys
having me.
need help scaling your agency, go to eightfigureagency.co to check us out. We could help you grow.